Hi, I am Rachel from 7 and All, and today I am bringing you a retrospective look back on the 2023 through 2024 homeschool year, focused on the curriculum and resources, what we loved and what we didn't kind of video. I still haven't decided yet. I may do more of a reflections on this last school year type of video, which is more focusing on what I learned and things that really stood out to me. So let me know if you'd like to see that video. But for this one, I just really wanted to focus more on the resources that we used and things that really stood out or things that ended up not getting used. So let's get started. First of all, our phonics and reading curriculum was all about reading level 1, and you'll be able to see my video thorough review on all about reading level 1. And I talked about this a little bit in that video, but on the one hand, it worked. My son has made a lot of progress with learning how to read as we've gone through that program. On the other hand, there was one element of that program that we ended up not using at all. So this was one of those we didn't use it things. But those are the reading fluency, reading practice sheets from the program. These are sheets of words, phrases, and sentences that are tied into the phonics concept that you're working on, the phonograms that you're working on, but they don't tell a story and they can kind of feel like a big chunk of words to read. There are ideas in the All About Reading program in the teacher's guide for how to make these more fun by adding snacks or cutting up these sheets or writing them out and just making them more interesting. But for me, my son kind of pushed back a little bit on doing these, and I also felt like these were boring. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea to use these or it's a bad idea to turn them into fun games for your kids, but for me, I was just like, I feel like it's not worth it. And I have other early readers. I have other very easy to use resources that I can rely on, so we just didn't use these and we were fine. But that's not to say that you shouldn't. I'm just admitting that we didn't. We also used Gentle and Classical Primer this past year, and I've talked about that program in a number of videos, so I'll try to link to my video and link to this resource down below. But that is a full kind of kindergarten morning time type curriculum. It covers a number of subjects and we really enjoyed it, but one of the subject areas that I was really happy that they included was the music and the art, because for me and just where I've come from, it would just not be on my radar, the type of person that I am. It wouldn't be on my radar to be teaching a kindergartner about Monet and Kandinsky and Vermeer and Bach and Mozart and having them listen to those. It wouldn't have been on my radar unless I had been using Gentle and Classical Primer. So I'm really thankful to the curriculum for that, for challenging me to get outside my comfort zone and start incorporating these subject areas that I haven't really studied much in my own life. And we also learned orchestra instruments, which was really cool, getting to learn and identify different instruments of the orchestra, which, like I'm saying, I don't know for sure that I could have identified a tuba from a trombone before doing this curriculum. It just has not been a big part of my life up until this point. But I was glad that a kindergarten curriculum could push me a little outside my comfort zone. And it was really fun to hear my boys as they responded to this and really engaged with this knowledge. So then we're playing classical music in the car and my son is asking, oh, is this by Bach? And that's just really cool to hear how they are engaging with what they've learned. One element of Primer that we started out using, and we did use for quite a while, but we didn't stay consistent with it till the end, was the kindergarten binder. So I have it all set up in a binder so I can reuse it, but this has pages for all the letters, and I really like how they did the letter pages for the kindergarten binder, because you can get a little bit of reading practice. You get to build the letter, write the letter, and then find which word has the letter. And if your child's ready to start reading, you can have them, and this is what I used to do, have them choose a couple words with the letter in it to read. And they also have number pages where you're writing, counting, building, spelling. There's lots of great learning in here. I actually started using this when my son was still going through Gentle and Classical Preschool, because he was getting a little bit bored with the preschool binder. And then what I found out by probably around the last half of primer was he was getting a little bit bored with this one. And I didn't limit how many pages he would do. So in the beginning, he would go through and do all of the addition and subtraction pages in a day. And we did many of these pages many times, but probably by around the last 10 to 15 weeks of primer, I kind of just put this aside and wasn't doing it anymore because I noticed he wasn't as interested in doing it. And also I was realizing he just knew everything in it, so it kind of was becoming busy work at that point. It's not busy work if you still need to learn the material, but if you kind of have mastered it, that's when there's not really much point in doing it. But we did continue to use, because Gentle and Classical conveniently includes the 10 frames in the morning binder, and then Kate Snow's Kindergarten Beth uses 10 frames all the time. So we did continue using our 10 frames pages, but we were no longer doing the daily work in this for about the second half of primer. Now, this year we also used Gentle and Classical Nature Volume 2 for our science, and I've talked about this many times. This Volume 2 has an ocean theme, ocean and waterways theme. So we have also used Volume 1. Between the two of them, I would probably say that Volume 2 is my favorite. Not necessarily because it's better, but just because the subject matter of oceans has been so fun. My kids are very interested in ocean animals, so that has made it really fun. We also live near the beach, and that can be a big part of our life. But then also, I think by the time I was using the second nature program, I was much more used to the format, and it was easier for me to make it my own and adjust it to our homeschool better. And I was better at that by the time we were using Volume 2 than I was when we were using Volume 1. So for example, I made a couple of book switches, and that's not to say that the books in the program were bad. I switched this one out for the Big Book of the Blue, I think, which was scheduled as one of the core read alouds. And I was like, well, that's probably a perfectly fine book, but it was the same price as this one, and I knew I wanted this one. I love this series by Kate Messner, Over and Under the Waves. And I knew I wanted this one, so I'm like, if they're the same price, I'm just gonna switch and get the book that I know I want. The other book's probably good too, but I just kind of went with a known versus an unknown. One other adaptation that I made was that in the student notebook, they have nature poems for you to recite with your kids every day, or as you're going through the unit, and hopefully work on memorizing them. We weren't super successful with that in Nature Volume 1, which could have been the age of my kids, but I also thought, maybe it's because I don't have that nature poem out when we're doing our morning time and we're going through our other cards. So for this one, I just printed 2 pages of every page in the student notebook that had the nature poem on it, and then I cut the page so that then I ended up with a card. So it's nothing bad, right? I'm just cutting a piece of paper, printing 2 copies. Okay, now I have it on a laminated card. Now it's easier for me to incorporate reciting these poems. So we've done much better with actually reciting the poems and having my boys run around saying these poems for our Nature Volume 2. This has been an absolute blast. If you are looking for any type of ocean-themed science for elementary, I've looked at other ones. This is the one that I think I would recommend wholeheartedly the most. It is so rich, so good, so fun. So don't just think of it as, oh, only for people who want to do nature study. It definitely qualifies as an elementary science program, and I highly recommend it if you are wanting an ocean-themed science. And I'll put my affiliate link down below. Thank you so much for using my affiliate links when you can. That helps me and benefits my family so much. Next, something for mom is, this was the first year I ever had my own homeschool planner. And I've always been a planner girl. I've always been the type that I ask for a planner every Christmas, and I get a planner every Christmas so that I can start it for new January. But this is the first time I have had a planner specifically for homeschool. And this is the Homeschool Lesson Planning Minimalist Notebook from School Nest. I purposely got the minimalist one because I just do not need the amount of pages and the amount of planning that's included in the bigger one. And what you get in this is you get basically 2-page spreads for 1 week. You get this for note-taking or planning or lists, schedules, anything you need to jot down, and then you get this for record keeping. And for me, that's perfect, and that's plenty. There are also introductory pages with calendars, curriculum charts, book list pages, curriculum overview pages, classes, a few like extra pages like that in front, but it is fairly minimalist. This is 52 weeks long. So I have only used this on school weeks. So if we've had a week off for Christmas or spring break, I haven't used this. So this will last me for 52 weeks of school, which is great. And I think it was like $18. So I will link to this too down below. To me, this was a really good deal because it can last you for 52 weeks of school if you so choose to use it that way, and you don't get bothered by, having a different planner for every school year. That's not something that would bother me. The only downside is this is something physical. It's not a digital printable. So at some point, whenever I've done 52 weeks of school, I will run out of pages before the next time I go back to the US, and then I will have no homeschool planner, and I will be sad. But that day has not yet come. Next, sunlight has been a big part of our homeschool year. Between my family and my sisters, we are actually doing 4 sunlight cores this year. My sister in high school is doing Sunlight 200. I love that year. It's a year with a lot of great books, a lot of fascinating history. I asked her of the literature. She started that pretty late into the school year in December. So she's about 13 weeks in. I asked her right now what's been her favorite literature book she's read. And she said Till We Have Faces, which I love this book too, so makes sense to me. Her least favorite, she said, is probably Pride and Prejudice, which, yeah, I know so many people would disagree with that, but I can kind of understand. I mean, like, it's a good story, but the actual dialogue can be kind of hard to get into. My sister, who is in middle school, is using an older version of Sunlight D&E and doing a combined American history year. She also fairly recently started that one. And then for my 2 boys, I am doing Sunlight P and T. T we are just about finished with, and then P we're gonna have a few more extra weeks because T is only 30 weeks long, while P is 36 weeks long. As for T, we have just loved it. I think the book selection in Sunlight T is excellent. This is a book that's very special and close to my heart. I'm not even that much of an animal person, but this kind of book kind of makes me want to live on a farm. I'm really not a farm girl, but this book makes me, like, there's so much humor in this. It's so cleverly written and just realistic and fun. I love the Maple Hill Farm series. There's so many good books in Sunlight Level T. Definitely check that out if you're looking for Sunlight for little ones. For Sunlight P, one thing that I really appreciated was that it includes and recommends that you use the Developing the Early Learner workbook series. These are awesome workbooks. They are not the workbooks you normally think of, like practice writing the letter A and practice tracing the number 1 or whatever, like the typical ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. These are all really based on thinking skills. These are for perceptual growth, motor, visual, auditory, and thinking skills. So there's a lot of logic, fine motor skills, visual discrimination, auditory discrimination, activities, a variety of activities, and my son has loved these. In fact, we are like several weeks ahead where he currently is, where he's supposed to be, several weeks ahead of where Sunlight has it scheduled, because all the time he's being like, okay, can I do another one? Can I do another one? He likes to add on extra pages. Now for the Sunlight P book choices, we've enjoyed quite a few of them. We've especially enjoyed their science book selection. I love the way that they incorporate science into Sunlight P. This is one book that you spend quite a bit of time reading because it's pretty big. That is just so special, so excellent. You could just use this as a whole early science curriculum and do experiments and activities based off of this. There's so many great concepts introduced here. But they also have a number of other great picture books for science, and we have loved their science element. For the storybooks, there's been a few that we haven't liked quite as much. This, I would say, is the main book that I just didn't like it from Sunlight P. The Stories from Around the World by Usborne. And I have nothing against folk tales. And one thing my son really did like was that it does include a map, and he loves maps. So he would love to look at the map and see where a different story was from as we read it. That was cool. That's a cool feature to have in a book. But to me, I just didn't like the writing. Like, I love reading aloud, and I love to read aloud kids' books because so many of them are so fun to read aloud and have so much emotion and variety of pace and voices. And the writing just felt really flat to me. Like, I felt like you could tell these same stories but tell them better. So that was more just a me thing. My boys liked it well enough. They had no complaints about it. They listened to it. They were engaged. But for me, I was just like, just feel like this is not that great of writing. Something I am really happy that we added into our Spanish routine this year has been Yamitas. And we added this in about halfway through the year. My son was a little over 4.5 when we started, and that I think was a perfect age for him. I will leave my link for this down below. But he loves worksheets. He likes fun worksheets. And so having fun worksheets to do in Spanish has been a really good motivation for him to use his Spanish and for him to listen to Spanish, to follow the instructions in Spanish, work on responding in Spanish. He's also really liked the songs and the song recordings or the audio that he has to listen to the audio and then do something based on the audio. So this is simple. It's basically all pre-K type content, simple, colorful, but it's fun worksheets, and this has been a joyful addition to our homeschool. And I asked my mom what resource really stood out to her from this school year, and she actually said elementary exegesis. Most of the curriculum my mom has used this year has been curriculum that she's used for 15 years, with half a dozen kids. But elementary exegesis is actually a curriculum that I pushed and encouraged her to write and create, and then me and my sister came in and helped with designing it and creating it in a curriculum that we now sell on our website. But this was a class that my mom has taught on teaching exegetical Bible reading skills, skillful scholarly Bible reading to preteens and young people, to kids, older kids, to help them understand the basic ideas of exegetical Bible reading. I have a whole video doing a flip through of this resource that I will link down below. But yeah, when I asked my mom what stood out to her from this homeschooling year, she said it was this curriculum that she was a part of creating, because since we've created it, she's actually been able to teach the entire elementary exegesis class 2 times to her own daughters, but as well as other young people from our church and from our community, to help teach these practical skills for being able to read the Bible and begin to understand it, instead of just feeling confused or feeling like there's no way we could understand what this is supposed to mean, or frustrated by reading the Bible. So that was a resource that really stood out to her that I highly recommend that you check out. I'm proud of her for her work in creating it, and I'm glad that it's now a resource that more people can benefit from as well. All right, those were our curriculum highlights and lowlights from the year. There were just, I think I chose pretty well. There were just a couple of things that I was like, don't really like that so much, or I'm not gonna use that. So that was our curriculum recap from this school year. Leave me down in the comments below. What was your most favorite curriculum highlight, and what was your least favorite curriculum of the year? I'd love to hear. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.